Hey guys, how you doing? So, some gurglings and rumblings going on deep in my soul, and so I'm seriously considering a move away from my big Gambity repertoire and going a bit more grown up. And there's a few things that have gone on. If you've seen my not speedrun video from today, you'll already have a bit of an inkling about what I'm thinking about. Bottom line is, I'd like to improve. And it feels like I'm not improving that quickly doing what I'm doing. And I know the areas in which I need to improve. Obviously, I know I need to improve my end game, but in particular, to get from this intermediate level towards an expert level, you've really got to start mastering the positional game. Now, a lot of these Gambit lines can create nice tactical, open, sharp, dangerous positions, and it's all good fun, and I may still do it. However, a few things have happened, like I said. So we had a Chess Boot Camp live session yesterday with James, very strong on the positional side, and it was a really, really fascinating game, because what he said was, I don't know where this came from, but one of the things that we mentioned a couple of times is that good positions lead to good tactical opportunities and attacking opportunities, and it was an absolutely fascinating game. So James is around like the 1900 mark, also gunning for 2000, and but he builds his game on a much more solid positional foundation. So the other thing that I started looking at was what are the most successful first moves. And I know that we tell everybody you should play 1e4 or 1d4, but I've pulled all of my games in to opening tree, and and this is for me with the white pieces. So I'll flip it back. I've done 11,000 e4 games, and I've done pretty well. That's not bad at all, right? Averaging 55.5. I've done nearly 1,200 d4 games, and again, I'm doing pretty good on there. Also 55.5. So very, very good, beating the odds actually on chess.com for that. But my most successful opening of all, my most successful first move of all, is actually knight f3. One knight f3, and I've got 12 wins, 5 losses, and a draw. Now I know it's a very, very small sample size, but it just got me thinking. So then, if you follow me over now to the Lichess analysis board, so this is the starting position. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at how successful is this move, one knight f3. Okay, so I've got it. This is my level, 1800 to 2000 on Lichess. Okay, 1800 to 2000. 51% for white, equal only to one knight c3. Now let's just briefly whiz through everything. Okay, so at the 400 level, I think that's what we set it to. Yeah, 400 level. Knight f3 is 48-47, so white's slightly better, but there are better moves. e4 and d4 tend to do better at a very, very beginner level. Okay, let's jump up to 1000. At 1000, knight f3 is still a bit better for white, 49-46, but again, 1e4, 1d4 are doing better than that, and also 1c4, the English opening as well. And there are some others. So g3, b3, g3 is kind of very much related to knight f3. So it's doing all right there. Let's go up to 1200. At 1200, it's now 50% for white with knight f3, and again e4 is also 50%, d4 slightly better, c4 slightly better, and b3 as well. Is that the Nimzovich-Larsen attack? Something like that. Let's go up to 1400. So we're now at the kind of breakthrough level. Well, again, we have 50% win rate for white with knight f3, 51 for d4 and c4, and also 50% for e4. Okay, so it's holding its own at every level. But as you climb up, so now we're at 1600, knight f3 is now 51, along with c4 the English and the queen's pawn opening. e4 is starting to lag behind just a little bit. Why is that? Are we getting more Sicilian players here starting to come in? Also, but f4, is that the Borg, is it? The Grob attack. And b4, the Polish. They also do well at that level. Okay, so bear with me. So we're now up to 1800 level. This is around the level that I'm at now, okay? And knight f3 is now 51%, along with the English. So just slightly ahead of queen's pawn opening, slightly ahead of e4 on there, right? And let's keep going. The 2000 level. Knight f3 is now 51%, along with knight c3. So these first two knight moves are 51%. You are beating the odds at the 2000 level. But you keep going, and now we have the knight f3 at 50%, along also with knight c3. So you can read and g3, and you can see a pattern here. Okay, and finally 2500 level, knight f3 48%. There's a bunch on 48%. c4 the English, b3 as well, and e4 and d4 are slightly behind. So isn't that interesting? The only one that actually slightly better, knight c3. One knight c3 slightly better. So what does that tell us? Well, it doesn't tell us an awful lot at all. Right, so here we are back on opening tree, and I've actually pulled in the games from Brian, who's our beating captain at Chesterfield Chess Club, and he plays, his username is Kid Kia, so he plays the King's Indian defense as much as possible and the King's Indian attack. That is literally his chess.com username with a hyphen there. So I was just interested in how he does. So he plays knight f3 exclusively on move 1. And he's got 5,100 wins, 4,600 losses with that. And, you know, we could drill into it and see what happens from that point. d5 most common response, and etc. Now, I'm probably going to drill into what Brian does because he's been playing it for a long time and doing very well. So here, I thought I would just give it a bit of a whiz in a 5-minute blitz game. Now it paired me with an 1189 opponent. I'm 1444 at this point, but let's just see how it goes and let's just talk through it just a little bit, okay? So we have knight f3 on the first move. Now, obviously we are going for control over 2 squares in the center at this point. What we're not doing though is we're not trying to establish a more kind of solid and stable control of the center with our pawns, but every coin has another side. So what this means is that we have maybe options of playing our central pawns at a later point, okay? And I think, I mean, I don't think I like playing against a move like this at the start, right? I don't actually know what I do against one knight f3. Anyway, so we have the Sicilian invitation now. So he's kind of asking me to play e4 now on the next move. I don't do this. I'm just going to plow on with the King's Indian setup, okay? He mirrors me on the king's side. He brings out his knight, and I just go ahead and castle. So a normal setup for the King's Indian attack is to play d3 and e4. Seems to get in the way of this bishop for now. But again, something that's really coming through for me a lot at the minute is that things change. Pawn structures change. Bad bishops can become good bishops. And you'll very often want to put your knight here on d2 as well. So it's not the most aggressive opening, and it certainly is distinctly hypermodern because we are planning to contest the centre not immediately, but later on and quite often from a distance, using our bishops, using our knights, and then we're going to decide what we want to do with our pawns. So it's a slightly just different way round. Okay, so black fianchettos. Now I throw in e4 because I can do it for free. He brings out his knight and d3. Okay, so like I say, this is the normal setup, and you kind of keep this bishop in your pocket for later very often. Now, I have to stress I have not studied it at this point at all. We have e5 from black. I throw out my dark squared bishop now because I'm thinking maybe I want to put my knight there to buddy up with that knight. We shall see. Okay, black castles. I actually play knight c3 here. knight bd2 might have been more accurate, I don't know. He brings out his queen looking at my rook, looking at my b2 pawn, so I slide my rook over to b1 to defend. He brings a rook across, and now can you see a tactic? This is actually where the game completely turns. So this idea that you can't have fireworks, tactics, aggressive attacks and stuff like that from a so-called positional opening is just not true. So what can you see here? Okay, so this is like a medium strength knight fork tactic. Okay, so what I did was I grabbed the knight here on f6. What's defending the knight? Only the bishop, and now there, knight in, and notice this queen cannot move to defend the bishop. Why not? If you go back a bit, right, so here the queen still had the d8 retreat going to there, but after the rook moved to d8, that's no longer on, and now we win material, win the bishop outright. I re-centralize my knight because it's under attack. Queen makes a move. I defend my a pawn by just sliding it up one. Now I propose a trade of queens, which he accepts, shouldn't have done that. And there's a hanging pawn. But I decide to trade knights, because also my pawn here is also hanging. So I'm thinking, I'm up a piece. I've got that central knight. Now I spin my knight around, for reasons I'm not entirely sure about. Okay, knight goes back, he trades off finally. I solidify my position. And now I'm just wanting to trade off these pawns. Really there he should have taken with a pawn, because he's got doubled and isolated pawns here. Positional concept. Takes with the rook, and now his rook's got no sideways lateral movement, so I can force it off the board. Off we go. Start to bring in the king, because the rook is on the open file. I want to push that rook off the open file, and so this move is supporting the move rook e1. Again, because his rook's here, and this pawn is defended by my bishop. So we get the rooks off the board, and it's all straightforward from this point. Okay, and that's the end of the game. So what have we learned from that? Not a fat lot. Okay. The accuracy, actually I got 90% on that. So go figure. And there are lots of interesting things that you can do from good positions. You don't have to play from an unsound, crazy position in chess. And I mean, I'm inviting everybody to please, drop me a comment to let me know what you think, because I mean, what I want to do is I want to improve, and I also want to help you guys there. Now, I've made thousands of videos on the Freddy Krueger repertoire, on all these Gambit lines. I know somebody's requested the Scotch Gambit recently and stuff like that as well. And they're fine. They're absolutely fine. And I might still play them, and I might still play them in Blitz. But I don't know. I feel like I'd like to get into something. I mean, let's just go back to this analysis board here, right? And let's look at the 2200, 2500 level. Okay. So let's say, for example, what am I playing at the moment? I'm playing the Goering Gambit. Okay. So here at high levels, how does d4 do? d4 is still 49% for white. Okay, and this is at strong levels. So d4 is the Scotch, and then they will nearly always take. Okay. And now let's look at these lines. c3 is what I've been playing, the Goering Gambit. Okay, still scores pretty well for white. Right, and then if they take, which they shouldn't do, they do all right. But after knight f6 here, then black is winning 45% against 48. And in many lines, unless you're very accurate and push e5, it's not much better. So this is really the point. The Gambit lines can work. All right. Let's go back to the start and flip the board, and let's check how the let's say the Russo does. Okay, and I don't know. So the Italian game, and now f4. Sorry, f5. f5 already 48% for white, 47 for black. So it's not bad. And here at this level they don't take. They play d3 or they play d4. And if they find d4, then white is doing better. 53% against 43%. And that's the point. You know, once your opponents start to get better, they will know how to refute and to pick apart these tactical gambity lines. So with that in mind, I just thought I'd have a little probe, and we'll have a quick look at the King's Indian attack. Okay, so this is with the white pieces, same setup, or pretty much identical setup, and it will come after. Go on, let's force that variation as well. Okay, so after d5. Now, what was really interesting to me, so I'm going to play all of black's most common moves. Okay, we're going to play g3 on every line. We play g3 on the second move, right? And so they bring out their knight. So knight f6 most common. We fianchetto the bishop, right? Nearly always on move 3. They will play that, which seems to be, you know, making our bishop bite on granite. Right, we castle. That's move 4. They move their bishop out. And now, if you look here, knight h4 actually does really well. Coming after this bishop makes a lot of sense. But also the move c4 is the one I've picked out. 52% win rate for white. Okay, and we'll set it to 1800 to 2000 because that's where I'm at right now. Okay. And shut that down. c4, 53%. Now, confession, I don't really understand why. Why c4? Okay, I'm going to set myself the challenge of figuring out why c4. D takes c4 is 53% for white. All other lines are good though. All other lines are good. And we are not going to be exploring this right now. That is not the purpose of this video. This is just line number 1. Let's go back to the start. We play knight f3. Their second most common move is knight f6. Okay, now stop me if you've seen this before. We push g3. They do that. This is kind of what we had in the last game. Castle, castles. And now guess what? Move 5, c4, 53% win rate for white. It's the best move. It's absolutely the best move. And black is not better in any line from this point. Curious. Okay, back to here. Third most common move, c5. This is what we just saw, the Sicilian invitation line. Okay, you push g3 on move 2. They do that, you do this, they do something, you castle, bishop there. Right? What's the most winning move for white? 5 c4. Again. Go figure. Most common move now, knight f6, and we're winning 52% all of a sudden. Or we can push d4, etc., etc. Okay, I'm going to just delete that for now. Okay, next line, e6 on the first move. Okay, 56% win rate after g3. What? And this is strong intermediate stuff, right? Fianchetto, castle the king, c4. Right? If they castle, it's 50% to 43. Anything else, pretty much white is just better. Outright better. Crazy. Right, what about knight c6? They mirror. This is the black Mustang defense. Again, there. Now, in this one, this is the one, the only one where you don't play bishop g2 on this line because they're going to move forward with tempo and annoy your knight. So, in like King's Indian defense style, you need to counter it. Now d3 is perfectly good here. Okay, d3 is the most common move. Second most common move is actually just to go ahead with the fianchetto. Interestingly, still wins 50%. But d4 here is far more challenging. d4 wins 55 against 40. So that's a whole nother line to look into. And when I start, I'm going into this, I'm starting to feel like little chills of excitement going, I could get into this. Right? I like to prepare, I like to study, I like to do new things. And at the moment, it feels a bit like just kind of going over old ground. Anyway, so if they push forward, you push forward. And c4, believe it or not, c4 wins 63% from this point. Okay? So, for somebody who is getting old and doesn't want to remember a lot of things, I mean, this is the weirdest line of all. What about if they play d6? All the stuff we've seen before, okay? This is actually the perk invitation, okay, apparently. And they bring out their knight, and guess what? 56% win rate, clear winner, pawn to c4. Interesting stuff. So, might suit your Sicilian player as well. If you play Sicilian against 1e5, then maybe this might be good for you with the white pieces. And finally, we'll look at g6. Yeah, so, hang on. We're going back up. Okay, they start with the fianchetto. Same blooming stuff, right? And guess what? c4, 53% win rate. Okay? So I'm fascinated by this. I guess with c4, you are preventing them from playing d4 straight away. They just don't play d4 in this position because they're going to lose the central pawn for a wing pawn. Okay, so that's the idea. So what are they going to do? They're going to push this? Well, they're not going to push that either in this position. The most common moves, d6, c6, c5, d5. Oh, actually, so d5 does come in there. But every line better for white. So this is my proposal. That we actually start a whole new direction. We're going to move to India, right? And look at the King's Indian attack. And by the way, this isn't the only way to start the game. For example, I've known this before. If you face the French defense, you can plow on with the King's Indian attack, right? Let's look at the most common moves. d5. Knight to d2. Okay, defending this pawn with your knight, but from this traditional King's Indian attack position. Yes, we're blocking in the bishop, but don't worry about that bishop. Look, whew, it's got that, you know? Let's carry on. This is against the French. So you can play the King's Indian attack starting with e4 in many cases. Okay, we bring out our knight. c5 is the most common. We push g3. These are all the standard moves, right? At a relatively high level, they develop their other knight. We play bishop g2 and it's 54% already for us. Every line is better. g6 looks quite good here for black, but it's rarely played 4% of the time. Everything else, white is in the 50s. So I think that's quite interesting. Now let's have a quick look as well at the King's Indian defense lines from the other side of the board. Just looking at the three most common opening moves. So against e4, you can't just plow. I mean, g6 is playable and does all right. But it makes sense to push d6. So this is technically the Perk defense, or Pitt's defense. Okay, they will normally grab the center, and now you plow on with this. And the purpose, you have to play d6 to prevent this. If you bring your knight out straight away, the nice thing about bringing, right, why you generally want to bring your knight out before you do this, generally, is just because it's flexible. You're not really announcing your intentions. The moment you push your king's knight's pawn out, you're pretty much announcing what you're going to do. So it gives your opponent a bit of a whiff. Right, now you can bring your knight out. They do that, and you just plow on with your setup and castle. Okay, and this is 48% to white, 46% to black. White still has the first move advantage. Okay, so that's the same kind of setup, but we have d6 in there, so it's technically a Perk defense. Right. What about if they start with d4? Well, this is the classic King's Indian attack. You bring out your knight, controlling the center. They do that. Pretty much the same as we've just seen. Now, interestingly, if they push on and really extend in the middle of the board, you can drop your knight back to e8. And we do rather well from here. It's 47 to white, 48 to black. So, another whole avenue of stuff to explore. And finally, we'll have a quick look at the English. Same old thing, you know, with the fianchetto on that side of the board. And from here, 45 for black against 49 for white, but I'm sure we can find some interesting lines in there. So with your permission, guys, I would like to put Freddie on ice and all these gambits on ice for the time being, because I don't know, I'd quite like to explore becoming a stronger player, and you never know, I might be able to bring some of you guys along for the ride with me. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think, because I know it all seems a bit grown up and stuff, and I know it's a game and we're all meant to enjoy it, but you know what? Improving at the positional side can be enjoyable too, I think. Well, I'm going to find out anyway. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I've already got heaps and heaps of stuff over all the tactical winging it stuff. I just thought I'd fancy a bit of a change of scene. So, you know, I'm moving to India. Let me know if you want to move to India with me, and maybe we'll have some fun along the way. Okay, thanks for watching. See you soon.